Okay, so is sugar keeping your weight stuck? And as I just said, we will talk about the connection between sugar and your belly fat, how much sugar is too much sugar. We'll talk a little bit about where sugar is coming from in your diet, and I'll help you understand what the recommendation is for added sugar in your diet and how much sugar is in the foods that you're consuming. And then I'll give you 4 strategies to reduce your sugar intake. Okay, so as always, today I'm just going to try to transform the way that you look at losing weight and being healthy. It definitely goes a little bit against the grain and the norm, but it will show you how to finally achieve sustainable weight loss for life, and it'll help you understand how to take control of your health finally, and how to do that for the rest of your life long term. Okay, and that's really without counting calories, without going to the gym, and without feeling hungry. So, who am I and why you should listen to me? My name is Trina Rise. I'm a holistic nutritionist and I'm an expert in men's weight loss for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So, I've been a holistic nutritionist for 10 years or a little bit more than 10 years now. And I definitely have worked with all types of people. But in the last 5 years, I've transitioned my practice to work specifically with men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So other than being a nutritionist, I'm a wife and a mother. This is my husband and my 3 kids. I have 1 daughter and I have 2 sons. Um, this is my best friend David. This is really the reason why I transitioned from working with both men and women and children and pretty much everyone under the sun to just working with older men. He's my best friend. Well, now he's in his late 50s, but when I worked with him to help him lose his belly fat and really learn about what older men need to thrive and be healthy, he was in his early 50s and having a really hard time getting rid of his belly fat. So I also have lots of men in my life. Obviously, you can see here, there are some of my clients. This is my client, Dan. This is one of my clients, Mike, who I had the absolute pleasure of meeting this summer when I was in Nova Scotia. That's where he's from. I have my sons, my husband, my best friend David, and his dad, who's 94. I have my own father and my stepfather and my father-in-law, and just lots of men who are very important to me, including my clients. So when I talk to men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, whether they're my client, whether they are my friends, whether they're my family, they tell me these things. When I see a picture of myself, I feel disgusting. I'm starting to feel desperate because nothing I try works and I'm worried about my health. I want my mojo back. I want to know what it feels like to have energy again. I get what I need. I get what I need to do done. So a lot of the men that I talk to say that, yeah, they're going to work or they're doing yard work or they're getting all the things that they need to do done, but they feel like they're just pushing themselves, that they have no energy. So they want their energy back. I want to look sexy again. And then some people are saying, I'm tired of looking like I'm pregnant. So put a 1 in the comments, whether you're watching in the replay or you're watching live, if any of those sound like you. So we'll just get started now. The connection between belly fat and sugar. So sugar really does a few things that affect your belly fat. Number 1 is that it messes up your hormones. And number 2 is that it messes up your metabolism. The third is that it increases inflammation in your body because it's an inflammatory food. And the fourth is that it is really highly addictive. So sugar has been shown to be more addictive than cocaine in rat studies. If you give a rat water that has cocaine in it and you give a rat sugar water, it's going to pick the sugar water every single time. So sugar is extremely addictive. So on most of the trainings that I do, we talk about 4 things that are keeping your weight stuck, okay? And those are muscle mass, hormones, metabolism, and inflammation. So 3 of the things that I just talked about when we're talking about the connection between sugar and belly fat are 4 things are in the 4 things that are keeping your weight stuck. So you have hormones, your metabolism, and inflammation. So here are the facts about sugar and your belly fat. Number 1, the more sugar you eat, the higher your insulin levels will be. Okay. Number two, insulin is the fat storage hormone. So, insulin is the hormone that dictates how much fat is going to get stored in your body. Number three is that too much insulin equals insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is really where your weight loss and the fact that your belly fat is so stubborn comes from. If you're carrying around extra belly fat, whether you've been diagnosed with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes or not, you do have some level of insulin resistance. And really, this is a vicious cycle. If you have high insulin, that equals fat storage mode for your body. And when you have chronically high levels of insulin, you have insulin resistance. And insulin resistance equals stubborn belly fat. So you really need to break this cycle. Okay. So this is basically what's happening when you're eating sugar. Okay. So you're eating sugar, your blood sugar then increases. And when blood sugar increases in your body, your pancreas releases insulin, and insulin is really released to lower your blood sugar. The problem is that if you've had chronically high levels of insulin in your body for too long, your cells will resist it. So your cells resist insulin, and then your blood sugar stays elevated. And when your blood sugar stays elevated, you have excess sugar floating around, and your body has to do something with it, and your body stores it as fat. Okay. And then once that sugar is out of your blood and it's stored as fat, maybe you're going to feel tired. You might have an afternoon slump or a morning slump, and that triggers cravings. And so then you eat sugar again, and this cycle starts over and it keeps going indefinitely, which is why if you have belly fat and you cannot get rid of it, um, you're in this cycle, okay? So insulin really unlocks the cells so that sugar can enter and get converted into energy. So insulin is a key. It goes into the cell like a key goes into a door and opens it up so that sugar can get into your cells. So if your cells are resisting insulin, it means basically that key doesn't fit anymore, all right? So all that sugar or glucose is floating around in your bloodstream and your body has to do something with it. Well, your body takes all that excess sugar and it stores it as fat. And that is why you have this stubborn belly fat. That's why maybe your belly's getting bigger or you're doing everything you can and you can't get rid of it. Okay. And you're definitely not the only one. Everybody I talk to every single day is wondering why they cannot get rid of this stubborn belly fat. Like it's just been getting bigger and bigger and more difficult to get rid of as they get older. Okay, so that's the connection between sugar and belly fat. Now I want to talk a little bit about how much sugar is okay because, this is a question I get asked a lot. Well, it's a piece of fruit, so I should be able to eat it, or fruit's healthy, so that's fine. Or, well, isn't cane sugar better than regular sugar? How much can I have? So, how much sugar is okay really depends on who you ask. There are some nutritionists who are going to say, sugar is evil, you should never have any sugar, you shouldn't eat fruit, all of these things. And then you can have the World Health Organization or most organizations in the US and Canada and probably also New Zealand and Australia who say that about 12 teaspoons of added sugar per day. So added means that you're eating food that has added sugar. So not a piece of fruit or broccoli or whatever. It's something that has actual added sugar to it. So 12 teaspoons of added sugar per day. So, I mean, that's really great. 12 teaspoons. Think about that for a second. That's like putting 12 teaspoons of sugar into your coffee. It's a lot of sugar. But what does 12 teaspoons of sugar really look like? Four peaches, four whole ripe peaches, that equals 12 teaspoons of sugar. One can of fruit punch, like Minute Maid fruit punch or any other brand of fruit punch, just a normal size sort of soda can, has 12 teaspoons of sugar. Two Hershey bars has 12 teaspoons of sugar. One bag of Skittles has 12 teaspoons of sugar. And that's a good one to think about now, especially for those of us in North America. It's Halloween's coming up. So, one bag of regular Skittles has got enough added sugar to for you to get the recommended daily dose of added sugar in your diet. Okay. Or you could have, a tall glass of apple juice that also has 12 teaspoons of sugar. So the reality is when you're asking the question, how much sugar is too much, that everybody is different. Okay. So when I work with you, I determine how much sugar is too much for your specific situation. If you're dealing with things like prediabetes, if you're dealing with diabetes, the amount of sugar that you can have is a little bit different than somebody who, you know, does not have those conditions yet, but it's just dealing with belly fat. So, really it depends also on your activity levels. It depends on what kind of symptoms you're having after you eat sugar. All of those things are used by me to determine how much sugar is too much for you and how much sugar you can eat and still lose weight and deal with your health from a root cause. Okay. So, as a general rule, that being said, you should limit your sugar intake as much as possible until you deal with the four things that are keeping your weight stuck. Okay. And just to recap, the four things that are keeping your weight stuck are your muscle mass, your hormones, your metabolism, and the inflammation in your body. So until you deal with until your hormones are balanced, until your metabolism is working well, and you'll know your metabolism is working well when you have energy back, when you're able to lose weight easily, and when the inflammation goes down in your body, which is, that can be aches and pains, that can be allergies, that can be acne, it can be all kinds of things. But until you deal with these four things that are keeping your weight stuck, your sugar should really be limited as much as possible. And so inside of my program, the Belly Fat Fix, obviously these are the four pillars of the program. These are the things that I deal with, and we deal with these things by the food choices you make. And one of the food choices you need to make when you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to get healthy as a man in your 40s, 50s, and 60s is to limit your sugar. Yeah, maybe it kind of sucks, but that's just reality. You've got yourself into this mess where you've got this belly fat and you have these problems with your hormones, your metabolism, and your body, and you need to make the right choices. And one of those choices is to limit your sugar. So one thing you need to know is that all food you eat gets converted into sugar. Yeah, it doesn't matter what. I mean, you can have a can of Coke, you can eat a sugar cube, you can have a steak, you can eat a bunch of vegetables. Whatever you eat, it's going to get converted into sugar. However, different foods affect your blood sugar differently. So if you have, a can of Coke or a glass of orange juice, your blood sugar is going to get a lot higher than if you eat a steak or if you eat an avocado or if you have a handful of nuts. So really one of the most important things when we're talking about limiting sugar in your diet, it's really not only about the food that you're putting in your mouth, but it's about learning how to limit how much your blood sugar spikes. So that's what I teach my clients. I really teach them how to eat foods properly in a way that will control their blood sugar so that the sugar in their blood from the food they eat is not as much. Okay. We want it to be down around here. We don't want it spiking up way high like that. And I do that really by focusing on the building blocks of food and the building blocks of what you need for proper nutrition. And those building blocks are protein, healthy carbs, fat, and fiber. And the focus really should be on combining those four things in a way that keeps your blood sugar lower. Okay. So it's not only about the food you're going to put in your mouth, it's about the combinations of food you put in your mouth. So, four strategies to reduce your sugar intake. And these are important, especially if you're starting from a point where where you're just learning about sugar, where you're just learning about how much you should have and how it affects your body and how it affects your health. Maybe you've just been diagnosed with prediabetes. Maybe you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Maybe you're dealing with things like low energy after you eat and fatigue, or even just the fact that you can't lose your belly fat means that you really need to learn how to reduce your sugar intake and how to reduce that spike of blood sugar that food gives you after you eat. So the first one is to get rid of high fructose corn syrup. You may or may not have heard of high fructose corn syrup, but every single thing that you eat that tastes delicious, like chocolate covered almonds and Oreo cookies, and prepared cakes that you buy at your grocery store or a pie that you buy at Walmart, they all have high fructose corn syrup. So here are 12 foods that have high fructose corn syrup in them. Number one's candy, packaged sweets. So like I said, muffins, Joe Louis, any packaged sweets and pastries, things like that. Soda has got high fructose corn syrup. Any kind of juice drinks usually have added high fructose corn syrup. Fast food, um, so some actual food has it. But if you're going out to McDonald's and, for example, you're having chicken nuggets or something with a dip, those dips are going to have sugar added, and usually that will be high fructose corn syrup. It's the cheapest way for companies to add sweetness to stuff. So sauces and condiments, and we're talking like Heinz ketchup. We're talking about most condiments. Relish has got it. Mustard, no. Mustard actually doesn't really have any sugar, or most of them, but you should be checking the labels. Number seven's ice cream and ice pops, um, or any of those sort of ice cream bars, things like that. Number eight, and you might not think about it, would be breakfast foods. And sure, something like a Pop-Tart, you're probably like, oh yeah, that's no brainer. That's got high fructose corn syrup. But there are other things like if you buy frozen sandwiches or I can't remember the name of them, but they're like sausage and egg bowls, things like that. Check the ingredients because a lot of those breakfast foods, the convenience breakfast foods, have high fructose corn syrup. Number nine is fruit preserves and jams. 10 is bread and crackers. They usually have added sugar. 11 is pancake syrup. I'm not talking about maple syrup. Maple syrup obviously comes, like pure maple syrup comes from a maple tree. You can make it. My sister's got maple trees and she makes it every spring. So that doesn't have added sugar. But if we're talking about like any of those other pancake syrups that are just basically liquid sugar. And then one that you might not think about is applesauce. So if you are buying applesauce, make sure it's unsweetened because a lot of them that are sweetened will have high fructose corn syrup. And I'm going to tell you, this is kind of weird now, you're seeing a picture of a bear on the screen, but I'm going to tell you why I want you to eliminate high fructose corn syrup from your diet. Um, and I'm going to do that by asking you this question. How do bears gain so much weight before winter? I don't know if you've ever asked yourself that question. Bears double their weight before they go into hibernation. Okay. And they do that by eating two things. And you can see them here. They eat berries and they eat a ton of fish. So bears bulk up by 450 to 550 kilograms or 1,000 to 1,200 pounds before they hibernate. They double their body weight before winter. And the reason why they do that, and I mean, it's crazy, right? They develop insulin resistance. So that little chart that I showed you about insulin resistance, that's what happens. They just eat so much that their cells no longer can use all that food for energy and they store it all as fat. But the reason why they're able to sort of keep eating and gain that much weight is because the fructose from the berries that they eat flips a biological switch that allows them to overeat. Okay, so high fructose corn syrup has actually been engineered by the food industry to hijack your biology. Scientists created it knowing exactly what it do. They created it knowing what happens to bears, and this is exactly also what happens to people. So high fructose corn syrup actually hijacks your brain. It overrides stuff in your brain and it makes you want to eat more. It makes you feel hungry even when you're not hungry. It increases impulsivity towards food rewards. So it makes you seek out that reward you get from eating something sweet. It tells your brain to prepare for a winter that is never coming. So I hope that makes sense to you guys because I know for myself, and I mean, yeah, I'm a nutritionist. I keep things pretty buttoned down most of the time, but like around Christmas and around the holidays, sometimes I get into the chocolate. And once I start, I cannot stop. Okay. And the reason for that is these four things. That sugar is hijacking your brain, especially the high fructose corn syrup, okay? Because it's not like the sugar or the fructose that's found in the berries that the bear eats. It's not like that at all, okay? So high fructose corn syrup is much worse than the sugar found in berries. So 1 cup of strawberries, for example, and strawberries taste sweet, I'm sure, to most people. It has 8.5 grams of sugar. All right. So when we're talking about those 12 teaspoons of sugar, a cup of strawberries has about two of them. A can of Coke has 39 grams of sugar. Okay, so that's almost 10 teaspoons of sugar. So just imagine taking a teaspoon, like one of the teaspoons that you would use to put sugar in for your coffee, and putting 10 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee. That's how much a can of Coke has. And like when I'm talking about a can of Coke, I'm talking about a small can of Coke. All right. So yeah, you don't want high fructose corn syrup in your food. So just check labels, but also all processed food has got it. Any sugary drink you have is going to have it. Just please try and eliminate it. Try and also be really present with it. Like if you are going to indulge, Norms, I never knew that about the Bears. I know it's extremely interesting about the Bears, but we are kind of not that different from bears. So, I do work with people who have doubled their ideal body weight, much like a bear does in the fall. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that, and I'll just go back, honestly, is that this food that we're eating, the food that the food industry is pumping out is really hijacking your brain. It's highly addictive, and it has been created to make you want more, to make you eat and eat and eat. And there's one other interesting thing about the bears, and is that, they get angry, right? They get violent, like they're going to protect their food. And so you can think about that sometimes if you are like, you're just in this mood where you need to have that sugary snack or you need to have the snack, you feel maybe a little bit angry, emotional, and maybe even a little bit violent, like you need to have it. So we're not that much different from bears. The second strategy is really to limit sugary drinks. Sugary drinks are the enemy, in my opinion, not only for your metabolic health. So things like well, metabolic health pretty much encompasses everything. It's like diabetes and weight and Alzheimer's and cholesterol and blood pressure and all of those things, those fall under the umbrella of metabolic health. But liquid sugar really is the worst way to consume sugar. Okay, because it causes a huge spike in blood sugar and insulin, which not only will make you fat, which not only will, cause you to carry that belly fat and not be able to get rid of it, but it will affect your metabolic health. All right. It's going to make you less healthy. So you really want to replace soda, fruit juice, and energy drinks with water, unsweetened tea, or sparkling water. And unsweetened tea, there are like tons of different herbal teas. They still taste really good, but they don't have any sugar in them. So that can be an option. Or, put some lemon or some lime in your water. You'll get used to it. You really have to try to wean yourself off sugary drinks and sugar in general. And when you do, you will find joy in having things that are naturally, tasty and sweet, like water with lemon. Okay, so if you like sweetened coffee or tea, you can also just gradually reduce the amount of sugar that you add to it or drink it black right away. So I work with lots of people, and sometimes, they're like, oh, but I have to have my coffee creamer. It's just not the same. And that's really great. So maybe they're using 3 teaspoons of coffee creamer in their coffee. Um, we just try to reduce it. So at the beginning, when I work with people, it's not necessarily about cutting out every single thing that's bad right away. I really like to meet people where they are, and we just sort of slowly try to eliminate these things over time. So if you drink tons of sugar in your coffee or your tea, just gradually start reducing the amount of sugar. And get used to it, right? If you normally take 3 teaspoons of sugar, have 2 teaspoons for the next week and then slowly reduce it, okay? You want the changes to be sustainable. So here's a good example of liquid sugar. This is Fanta. This is like a 50 milliliter bottle of Fanta. So it's like one of those decent sized ones that you'd buy at a gas station or at a convenience store. Um, and you can be like, oh yeah, it doesn't really have that many calories. It has 230 calories, but it has, and you can see down here, it has 62 grams of sugar. Okay, 62 grams of sugar is 15 teaspoons of sugar or 15 sugar cubes. It's a lot of sugar. And the one thing about drinking liquid calories or liquid sugar like this is that, if you eat sugar, like say you have a piece of a piece of fruit and you have that with some almonds, your blood sugar is not going to spike as much. If you just sit down and you drink this this Fanta or some other soda, you drink that, your blood sugar is going to spike extremely high. There's nothing to buffer the sugar in this drink. And you may say, well, orange juice is better, right? Fruit juice is better. Uh, Not really. This is Tropicana. This is a popular orange juice where I'm from. I don't know if it is in the States, Norman Vinny, but this, if you have 1 cup, so 250 milliliters, and that's basically around, I don't know how many ounces that is. I think it's like eight ounces, but it's like a can of Coke, basically. Like if you have a can of Coke and you filled it with orange juice, and it's got 23 grams of sugar. So if you think about, yeah, if you think about on the weekend when you're like, oh, I'm gonna have a glass of orange juice with my breakfast, and you fill up this giant glass of orange juice, you're having pretty much as much sugar as you would in a can of Coke. All right. It's really not that much better. So eating an orange is something different. You can have, you have the pith, you have fiber, you're chewing it. It's a little bit different. But if you're drinking orange juice, you're just drinking it back. It's not that much different than having a pop or any other sweetened drink. Okay, the third strategy to lower your sugar intake is really choose whole foods over processed foods. Okay, whole shoes. And I hope you're not eating shoes. Anyway, whole foods don't have any added sugar. Um, they don't have any added sugar. Like if you make yourself a salad and some chicken with an avocado on top and a red pepper, none of those things have added sugar. Okay. You made it. You bought the whole fruit from the store or from the market or from the farmer. You know what's in it. Okay. So when you pick whole foods, that's one of the best things about it really is that you don't have to worry about added sugar. And part of picking whole foods is really preparing homemade meals and snacks so that you control the amount of sugar you're consuming. And I talk to my clients about this a lot because, they're probably just like you guys and you're busy, you're out of the house, you're working, you're bringing lunch with you to work or you're stopping to pick something up. But the reality is when you go and pick something up at a fast food place, you don't know what's in it. Like, okay, you're going to get the healthiest option. You're going to get maybe like a chicken on a bun and the chicken's grilled and it has some sauce on it and this and that. Well, what you're not thinking about when you eat that chicken sandwich is that the bun, which is white bread, is going to turn to sugar in your body when as soon as you start eating it. But also, well, what's that sauce made of? Yeah, maybe it has some decent ingredients in it, but the reality is probably it's got some high fructose corn syrup as well, which is going to make you crave more sugar. Okay, so make your own food. This third strategy is to read nutrition labels carefully. Check for added sugars on food labels, and this includes everything. This includes things like salad dressings and ketchup and barbecue sauce, all of that stuff. Okay, there's a lot of sugar and stuff. I mean, even like a canned tomato sauce, tons of sugar. Check the labels. It's really important that you check them and that you know what you're eating. Get things that have the least amount of sugar, that are the least processed, and that are the closest to whole food that you can get. All right. And then look for terms like high fructose corn syrup, HFCS, sucrose, glucose, and other sweeteners on everything. Okay. And choose products that are labeled unsweetened or no added sugar. So, for example, like applesauce. I know my son likes to eat applesauce sometimes on pork chops. So, I always make sure that I buy unsweetened or no added sugar. It's really, really important. Everything has got, honestly, everything has got added sugar in it. It's actually crazy. All right, so let's talk about artificial sweeteners. Who thinks artificial sweeteners are good for weight loss? I'll ask that question. Or maybe that they're a good substitute, right? Because maybe you're diabetic, maybe you're pre-diabetic, maybe you're worried about your sugar, and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to use artificial sweeteners instead. I'm going to get that ketchup that doesn't have any sugar that's sweetened with sucralose or something like that, or even stevia. So the reality is that artificial sweeteners are actually more addictive than sugar. And the reason for that is that they taste sweeter. So I don't know if you have stuff with artificial sweetener, but it's kind of just got this super, super sweet taste. And your brain really can't discriminate between an artificial sweetener and sugar. So, you're probably saying like, wait a minute, diet soda and diet drinks are making people fat. Vinny's saying I don't trust them. No, and you shouldn't trust them. And I'm going to tell you exactly why in a second. Not only, I mean, they've been proven to be not good for you, obviously, like aspartame, sucralose. I mean, they've done tons of studies where they make rats blind, and there are all kinds of crazy things that happen when you consume them. But do you know that having diet drinks or artificially sweetened foods will still make you gain weight, will still contribute to your belly fat? Okay, and so this is the reason why. When you consume an artificial sweetener, and you'll notice this is the same chart that I did with sugar. When you consume an artificial sweetener, that sweetener is actually mistaken by your brain for sugar. So your brain's like, oh, we just ate sugar. And so what does your body do when you eat sugar? You need to lower your blood sugar, right? So your body thinks, yeah, I just ate something sweet. And then insulin is released to lower that perceived elevated blood sugar. And the problem then is that maybe you're having all these diet drinks, but your blood sugar isn't high, but that insulin is still floating around in your bloodstream. And so you've got too much insulin, and that leads to decreased insulin receptor activity. So what happens basically is that there's just too much insulin around and your cells become resistant. They're like, oh, too much insulin, and they just don't want anything to do it. So then that key, insulin that fits into the cell to let the sugar in when there is actually blood sugar in your blood, it doesn't work. Okay. So your cells resist insulin, and then you get insulin resistant, and you can become insulin resistant even if you just consume artificial sweeteners. Okay. So artificial sweeteners also trigger cravings for sweets and for carbs because they are so sweet. So basically anything that you eat that tastes sweet is just going to make you crave more sweet stuff. It doesn't matter if it's artificially sweetened. It doesn't matter if it's full of sugar. It's going to do the same thing. Okay. And so that the same thing happens. If you're having artificial sweeteners, it's going to cause insulin resistance. This key that fits into the cell, insulin's the key, it won't fit anymore. Okay. And when it doesn't fit, when you do have blood sugar that's elevated, what is your body going to do with it? It's going to store it as fat because it can't get into the cells. So it's still causing the same problem as sugar is. It's making you fat. Okay. It's contributing to diabetes and prediabetes. So artificial sweeteners and sugar, in my personal opinion and professional opinion, really should both be considered drugs. And, I know sometimes when people start learning about this stuff, it's depressing, right? Because sweet stuff tastes good, it makes your brain feel happy, and it's comforting sometimes. But it's not that you can never have anything sweet. Maybe at the beginning, if I'm working with people and we're really trying to reverse our insulin resistance and we're really trying to get that belly fat, moving and this number on the scale moving down, yes, we definitely will limit sugar as much as possible. But there are ways to still enjoy some sugar once in a while that really won't affect your weight loss. So you can live a normal life. But it should kind of be like going out and having some drinks with friends. You don't, well, I mean, I guess some people do it very frequently every night. But for myself, for example, I don't do that very often. Maybe every couple weeks I might have a glass of wine or two with my husband, or once a month I go out. And it's the same thing with sugar. Yes, once in a while I do still eat sugar. I'm human. But I usually make sure that it's something that I made. I know what's in it. I know how much sugar is in it. I know there's no high fructose corn syrup in it. I know there are no artificial sweeteners in it. It's just something that my grandma would have made. It's a wholesome, sweet treat. But that's what it is. It's not like an everyday thing. And I think that's the problem right now, is that people eat sweets for breakfast, and then they eat sweets after lunch, and then they have sweets after dinner. And it's just ingrained in our culture that, you know, we should eat them and we deserve it. And that's what we should do. But it's really causing people to be overweight and metabolically unhealthy. So, the body really can't tell the difference between sugar and artificial sweeteners. Insulin is released whether you have a regular soda or a diet soda. So trying to trick your body with artificially sweetened food and drinks will hinder your weight loss efforts. So please, if you're like, I'm trying to lose weight, I only drink diet soda, you're not doing yourself a favor. You're not going to get the the weight loss results that you want. Okay, so the bottom line really is that sugar and artificial sweetener should be limited until you start seeing consistent, sustainable weight loss, and then even after that, they still should be limited. It should be a special treat. It shouldn't just be like a treat day every Friday. No, especially not if you go completely off the rails. I know for myself, I'm not any different than any of you. If I get a bag of chocolate covered almonds and I've got them in the pantry and I have a handful of four of them, it's over. I can't control myself until they're gone. So know yourself, but also understand that these foods have been created to hijack your brain, to make you want more, and to make you overeat. So when you know that, you probably are going to be a lot less likely to pick them up and get started like I am. I don't pick them up and get started very often. Once in a while, that's great, but don't make it an everyday part of your life and do the things that I've outlined in this training to start limiting the amount of sugar that you have in your diet. Okay. And obviously, if you need help, you feel like you need help, you need accountability, you need strategies, then contact me, book a free Zoom call with me if you haven't already, and I can help you, I can help give you the questions that you need to ask.